Alan, nice to see you this morning. So you don't care about the polls that everyone else gets caught up in. You're looking at a history for indicators. What do you see?
That was Professor Alan Lichtman, a distinguished historian, and he said that about 8 years ago when he predicted that Donald Trump was going to defeat Hillary Clinton. And he said, ignore what the polls are saying and actually focus on the data. Now, Professor Lichtman is saying if you look through all of the keys, all of the key data, President Biden would defeat Donald Trump. And Professor Lichtman has been going on CNN and other media outlets and pushing back hard against their narratives. And he's saying, look, you are complicit in spreading false narratives. You're actually ignoring the data that matters in predicting elections. You are ignoring the power of the incumbency. You are ignoring what President Biden's actually delivered for real Americans, pushing your own narratives that are just devoid of data. Watch Professor Lichtman right here call out these anchors to their face. This was recently, and he said, you are complicit. Here, play this clip.
Do you pay attention to those polls? How much does polling play a role in how you see things?
Polling plays far too much of a role in our decision making. Polls are snapshots. They're not predictors, and they change rapidly over time. One can turn to another poll. I think it was the Morning Consult poll, which showed that after the debate, Biden improved by 1 point. He went from a dead heat to a 45 to 44% victory. And, I love you guys in the media, but I have to say you are complicit in Donald Trump lying and conning his way to the presidency. All the attention has been on Biden's faltering debate, but Donald Trump's debate was vastly worse. It was based entirely on lies, more than 30 significant lies. That's one lie for about every 1 minute and 20 and 30 seconds. He threatened our democracy by saying he wouldn't accept necessarily the results of a fair election. He said he would seek retribution. Why wasn't that the headlines? Why wasn't that the greatest concern from the debate, rather than all the focus on Joe Biden? There's an old saying, it's not just the evil people who wreak havoc on the world. It's the good people who don't do enough to stop them. And the media right now is complicit in Donald Trump gaslighting his way to the presidency and threatening our democracy.
Then let me show you this. Professor Lichtman doing another interview where he was explaining on CNN how all of these CNN anchors, all of these pundits have it wrong. They're focused on certain polling data where they're cherry picking results that fit their narrative. They're pushing narratives, and they're not focusing on the key metrics for how you can normally predict who is going to win in an election. Here, watch him in this interview. Play the clip.
All of these pundits and pollsters and analysts that you see on all the cable channels and all the networks have no track record in predicting elections. And yet they come on and they claim they know how this debate is going to affect the outcome of elections. They have no idea. It's sports talk radio. It may be entertaining, but it has no scientific basis.
So what is the impact, you think?
Zero. Debates are not predictive of outcomes. Hillary Clinton won all 3 debates, still lost. John Kerry won all the debates, still lost. Barack Obama got trounced, 72 to 20% in the poll, worse than Biden, and went on to win. That's why we rely on the 13 keys which tap into the structure of how elections really work. And they show that Democrats' really only chance to win, contrary to everything you've heard, is with Biden running. Look at the incumbency key. Biden checks that off. The contest key, he checks that off. He was uncontested. It takes 6 keys to count out the White House party.
But
that means
Alan,
of the remaining 11 keys, 6 would have to fall. Let me finish.
Yeah.
Biden doesn't run. They lose the contest key. They lose the incumbency, and only 4 more keys would have to fall.
I think that that's actually kind of what I was trying to get at here, is that the problem right now is that the Democratic Party is considering replacing Biden, mostly because it's unclear whether or not he actually physically can carry out the rest of this campaign and put up a fight against his opponent. So that seems like a fundamentally different thing than some of the items that you have in your rubric.
It's a huge mistake. They're not doctors. They don't know whether Biden is physically capable of carrying out a second term or not. Remember, a lot of folks were saying the same thing about Ronald Reagan, who was, 73. And age was very different then. And they said, he's not capable of carrying out another term. He won 49 states. So this is all foolhardy nonsense. The same pundits and pollsters who led us down the primrose path in 2016 are giving the Democrats horrible advice. This proves what I've been saying for years. Republicans have no principles. Democrats have no spine. Republicans are sticking with a blatant liar who lied for every 1 minute and 20 seconds of that debate. Donald Trump put out a lie. And by the way, lies stick. Debate performances can be overcome. And now the first sign of adversity, the spineless Democrats want to throw under the bus their own incumbent president. My goodness.
And here's the thing. If you go and look at, there's lots of polling data out there. You can cherry pick a lot of polling data, but if you looked at the recent Reuters Ipsos poll, it's a dead heat. It's even between President Biden and Donald Trump, and President Biden does better against Donald Trump than any of the other potential replacements. If you go and look at the TIP poll, and granted, some of that polling was done slightly before the debate, a lot of it was done after the debate, it has President Biden beating Donald Trump, if you look at that snapshot. And then you look at other snapshots, the CBS poll, virtually unchanged before and after the poll. And what we've known as well is that the pro-democracy candidates have done significantly better than the polling when Americans are actually out there to vote. So what the media is pushing with all of these narratives is kind of suppressing the vote. They're out there, trying to, discourage voters. But I think voters are smart and they get it. Let me just show you this, just so you know, hey, is Professor Lichtman just biased? Is he out there just saying these things? Let me now show you that interview that he did with Fox about 8 years ago, where he predicted Donald Trump was going to prevail. And he used the same data. He used the same principles. And trust me, we didn't like that outcome, but he was giving us the data, which is what we do here on the MeidasTouch Network. We give you the data points and we align with what the data is actually saying. And if the data was saying something different, I wouldn't be saying all of this. Just take a look at what his analysis was about why he said the polling was wrong, that was saying Hillary Clinton was going to. Listen to what he says. Play this clip.
Alan, nice to see you this morning. So you don't care about the polls that everyone else gets caught up in. You're looking at a history for indicators. What do you see?
Well, my system is 13 true-false questions where an answer of true always favors the re-election of the party in power. It's based on the retrospective study of every election from the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 to Ronald Reagan in 1980, and it's based on the theory that elections are primarily referenda on the party holding the White House. So I look at the big picture, the economy,
right,
foreign policy, third parties. And the way it works, if the party in power has 6 of these 13 going against it, that's the Democrats now, they're predicted losers, and by my system, the Democrats have 6 negative factors against them.
Wow, here are the negative ones. Incumbent party mandate, nomination contest, so obviously Hillary Clinton had to fight Bernie Sanders, a third-party challenge, Jill Stein maybe taking some of the votes away from her, policy change, foreign military success, that's been a problem for her, and the incumbent charisma also. Now, what about some false keys for Hillary? Let's talk about the incumbent party mandate. Why is that a problem for her?
Well, that's the midterm elections, kind of a referendum on the party holding the White House, and the Democrats got wiped out in 2014. It's not her. Remember, we're talking about a referendum on the performance and strength of the party holding the White House. It doesn't necessarily turn on the individual candidates. And of course, in Donald Trump, you have such a precedent-breaking candidate.
Right.
You know, he said so many things that would drive other candidates out of the race that maybe he'll break the pattern of history and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, despite my system.
Key number 3, you say, is incumbency. Of course, the sitting president is not running. Why is that a problem for her?
Well, it's always better to have a sitting president running. A sitting president has a record. He has a gravitas. That's one factor that always counts against the party holding the White House. It's harder to win an open seat than to see an incumbent get reelected.
You say key number 7 I want to jump to. No major policy change in Obama's second term like the Affordable Care Act. Why is that a problem for her?
Well, it's always good if you're the party holding the White House to have something to run on, to have major accomplishments. Right now, because of the gridlock, she's kind of coming up a bit empty on any major domestic policy initiative.
And so here's the thing. We need to be very data-focused, data-driven, and we also need to understand that whether it was the PACT Act, the CHIPS Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, whether it was the Infrastructure Act, you could go on and on and on with President Biden's accomplishments that are actually impacting real Americans. Yes, when there are 40,000 actual infrastructure projects going up across the country, that means more jobs. And in the real world, people feel that. You know, when President Biden implemented the PACT Act, and there's over 1 million claims of life-saving care from our veterans who would otherwise not be able to get the care that they deserve. Yes, Americans feel that. When President Biden reduces the cost of insulin and dramatically reduces the cost of other prescription drug prices, yes, Americans actually feel that result. I know the media and Trump want to push, well, under Biden, the stock market was going to crash. Because remember, the stock market was like the only metric that they would use. If it went up, it was like, Donald Trump's having a great day. The stock market's up. Okay. Right now, the stock market is like double under President Biden than what it was under Donald Trump. But setting aside the stock market, which shouldn't even be a significant metric in how our lives are, whether it's wages that are up, whether it's unemployment that's at record lows, whether it's job growth at record highs, whether it's America leading the world in GDP, focus on the data. Focus on the data. I do not want to live in some cosplay fascist fantasy world. I want to live in the real world together. Let me know what you think. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. Thanks for watching.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.